At the center of the Russia panic is an accusation that bears directly on a key foreign policy question that affects all of us, and it's this. By colluding with Russia, Donald Trump and his team agreed to sell out America's interests by aligning with Vladimir Putin's government. That's what they're saying. In real life, of course, the opposite has happened. In the past 2 years, relations with Russia have deteriorated to historically bad levels, really the worst since the Cuban Missile Crisis of 1962. The question is, has that helped America in some way? And what is wrong with improving relations with Russia? Donald Trump ran on improving relations with Russia and got elected, as you remember.
Wouldn't it actually be wonderful if we could get along with Russia? Wouldn't that be nice? We get along with Russia, we go out together with others, and we knock the hell out of ISIS. Wouldn't that be great?
Steve Cohen is a former NYU professor, one of the eminent Russia experts in America, author of the new book, War with Russia, From Putin and Ukraine to Trump and Russiagate, and he joins us tonight. Professor, thanks very much for coming on.
Well, you got quite a lot. You got quite a lineup tonight, all the skeptics.
Well, it's what's just so interesting. At the heart of this is a real foreign policy question, which is why we're always so grateful to talk to you. And that question is, does the United States benefit in some way from demonizing Russia? Should we be enemies with Russia, or could we benefit more from some kind of loose alliance with Russia? That's really the question that Trump raised, and I'm starting to suspect that that view was so unpopular that it's driving the Russia investigation, at least in part. Do you think?
It's a mystery of our time, and I promise you that your kids and my grandkids and the historians of their generation will look back on this terrible era, this Russiagate era, and ask who started it, why it got such traction, and why it's done the damage it's done. Now, one explanation, but I'm not sure it's a complete explanation, is that when Trump said during the campaign it would be great to cooperate with Russia, the enemies of such cooperation saw in Trump an enemy, and they began this literally unproven allegation that he was somehow under the control of the Kremlin. But the damage it's done to our national security and to our institutions, you may be the only person who's asked the question, but I guarantee you historians will ask it, what have been the cost of these 2 years of Russiagate? They've been grave. I mean, Victor Hansen pointed out the corruption of our elites, but what about the corruption of our institutions, the presidency, elections, suspicions, doubts have been cast on these basic American institutions. And then I come to the thing that concerns me the most, that I worry about in this book, a war with Russia, question mark. I mean it. I think it's a possibility that Trump is not free to do crisis negotiation with Russia, and there's going to be a crisis soon, for sure, the way every president since Eisenhower has been.
Right.
I've said that before on your show. It's virtually an existential constitutional duty of the American president in the nuclear age to be free, empowered to deal with questions of war and peace with Russia the way John F. Kennedy was, Cuban Missile Crisis. I can't imagine what's going to happen if we have such a crisis. Trump is shackled. Remember what happened in July. I think you and I might have talked about it on the air. Trump went to Helsinki for a perfectly ritualistic, normal summit meeting with Putin. Comes home.
Yeah, we were there.
Accused of treason. Accused of treason. So that's the cost.
So can I ask you, we only have a minute left, but I'm so interested in this question, and I don't know the answer. What's the motive? Apart from disliking Trump, there are political motives, obviously, but there is part of our foreign policy establishment really believes that we ought to be in some sort of adversarial posture against Russia. Why?
I don't know. And when you don't know, you got to say it. But here is a theory that some people would offer you if asked that question. When the Soviet Union ended in 1991, the Washington elites who controlled foreign policy saw a world dominated or governed by or run by the United States. And that seemed to be a reality in the 1990s when Russia had a president who was ill, often drunk, and very compliant to Washington. And we got used to that. Russia is a kind of junior subservient partner in world affairs.
Right.
And then came Putin, and it was a shock. And they've been reacting to the shock of Putin ever since. And I'll give you one quote. Yeah. Nicholas Kristof, a very influential New York Times columnist, lamented in print, listen to this, that Putin did not turn out to be what he expected, namely a sober Yeltsin. Yeltsin having been the president of Russia in the 1990s.
The arrogance and dumbness of the people who make our policy and influence our policy really will be the title of every history of this period. Professor, thank you.
I agree with that.
Great to see you, and congrats on the new book.
Thanks, Tucker. Thank you.
First, it was Rudolph.